Have you ever felt totally overwhelmed at work? Buried under layers of complex problems and even more complex solutions? Well, if that sounds familiar, this short explainer is for you. We're going to dive into a simple story that holds a really powerful lesson about finding some clarity.
I know, it's a bit of a weird quote, right? But just stick with me here, because this one little idea is the key to this whole thing. It kind of suggests that the answer we're all looking for might be a lot simpler and a lot closer than we think. All right, so our story kicks off with a very straightforward, very human problem. It's about a man, a street, and a pain that he just can't seem to shake.
So get this image in your head. An old cobblestone street. There's a man shuffling along. His face is just creased in agony. Every single step is an ordeal. You'd think the source of his suffering is obvious. It's got to be his walk, right? His foot. It couldn't be clearer, or so you'd think.
And just when the problem seems simple, in comes the help. This is where our story takes a turn. As a whole parade of well-meaning, highly qualified experts arrive on the scene, each one ready to apply their considerable knowledge. So the first doctor to see him, he doesn't even hesitate. He sees a man in pain and immediately jumps to a really serious internal issue. The limp? Oh, that's just a symptom of something much deeper. So the man gets his appendix out, and yet the limp is still there. And doesn't this just hit home? We see this kind of thing all the time. A project is limping along, and what's the first big solution that gets thrown out? It's never a small tweak. Nope, it's always a massive, disruptive overhaul. We go straight for the organizational equivalent of major surgery. So he goes to another doctor. This one looks at the same persistent limp and decides it's not a physical problem at all. No, it must be in his head, a nervous condition that needs medication. So the man takes the tranquilizers, and now he's limping, he's in pain, and he's also a little bit groggy. And here is the modern version of that. Team morale is low. People are stressed out. Is the problem the workload, the process, some fundamental issue? Well, before we check any of that, let's roll out a wellness initiative. It addresses the symptom of stress without ever asking about the source of the pain. Next up, he tries an entire institution. The hospital's experts all consult and deliver a verdict with great authority. A generic, one-size-fits-all plan. Diet and exercise. Now, it's sound advice, generally speaking, but it has absolutely nothing to do with his specific, sharp pain. Finally, he consults the most distinguished expert of them all, the surgeon. After very thorough examination, the surgeon declares with absolute finality that the root cause is his tonsils, the most invasive and frankly the most irrelevant solution yet. So out they come. So what's the corporate equivalent of this ultimate authoritative fix? Oh, you know it. It's the mandatory adoption of some grand, complex methodology. It promises to solve everything, and it's so impressive and all-encompassing that nobody dares to question if it actually addresses the real, simple problem holding everything back. And here's where we see the real cost of all this misdirected expertise. In the story, the man loses his appendix, his tonsils, a tooth. In our world, we sacrifice the Q2 budget. We dismantle the marketing team. We kill off valuable product features, and we slowly chip away at team morale, all while the original problem just limps along, completely untouched. So after losing various parts of his body to the experts, the story reaches its turning point. The focus finally shifts away from all that external advice and turns inward, toward the actual source of the pain. And this is the crucial point. After all the surgeries, the medications, the diets, nothing had changed. The man was lighter by a few organs, sure, but the pain, the limp, the fundamental problem was completely unaltered. The experts had totally failed. And then, one day, it just occurs to him. He stops, he bends down, takes off his shoe, and he pulls out a small bent nail. He stands up, takes a step, and for the first time, there is no pain. The problem was never the appendix, or the nerves, or the tonsils. It was just a nail. Now, this is where the story stops being about a man with a limp and starts being about us. Because the story is a parable. And the joke, as it turns out, is on all of us who seek these complex answers when the simple ones are right there. I mean, think about it. An expert's value is tied to their ability to solve difficult problems. If your problem is just a nail in your shoe, there's no room for them to show off their vast knowledge, their intricate methods. Their expertise, in a way, depends on your problems being complicated.
So how do we avoid this trap? Well, the story suggests it comes down to understanding two different ways of knowing, two different operating systems for solving problems. You've got the head, and you've got the heart.
The head is where the experts live. It analyzes, it theorizes, and it builds these magnificent architectures of problems. It absolutely loves complexity. The heart, on the other hand, is different. It doesn't analyze, it feels. It doesn't need a theory, it senses the sharp point of the nail. It relies on direct, intuitive knowing.
And this is the core lesson, right here. The head accumulates knowledge about the problem. It can write papers on limping, it can theorize about potential causes, but the heart doesn't need all that. The heart simply knows there's a nail in the shoe. So this brings us directly to you. If you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed in your work, this ancient story offers a very practical diagnostic tool. It's time to stop consulting every expert and instead ask yourself a simple question.
What if the huge, complex challenge you're facing isn't actually that huge or complex? What if the thing stopping you, your team, or your project is a single, simple, irritating nail? You know, a process that's slightly off, a recurring meeting that drains all the energy, a piece of miscommunication. It's something you can probably feel right now if you just stop and notice.
The invitation from this story is to shift your perspective, to pause the endless analysis, step away from the complex frameworks, and for just a moment, just sense what's really going on. Move from thinking about the problem to feeling for the source. So I'll leave you with that. Before you hire another consultant or restructure another team or implement another system, just take a quiet moment. Take off your shoe. What is the small, sharp, simple thing that you've been limping with all this time?